Welcome to Retirement DNA Podcast. I'm Dwayne Johnson.
And I'm Aaron Johnson.
We believe that you deserve financial advice based on your best interest. In our podcast, we will discuss all aspects of retirement planning. Today, we're going to cover another one of the 5 major areas that we cover during financial planning for our clients. Today, we want to talk about investment planning and investment management. Now, when talking about those two things, the first step we take to find out is what are your goals? What to find out? What are your dreams for retirement? What are your concerns, your fears for retirement? What do you want retirement to look like? What does your money, your investments need to do for you during those retirement years? And one of the things we look at is assessing your risk and tolerance. Now, what happens if many companies is we'll start with having you complete a risk tolerance questionnaire. Then they put you into a model portfolio that fits your risk tolerance. And they might rebalance it once a year if you're lucky, and that's all the further it goes. So really they kind of look at it as a one size fits all. It's either you're low risk, you're moderate, or maybe you're willing to take more risk. We don't really look at things that way. We view portfolio construction differently than most companies. Now, as I said, we're going to start with your goals. It's something we call goals, strategies, and tools. That's kind of the process that we use. Now, through the planning process, we can determine what risk level you're going to need to achieve your goals. Your current allocation and your tolerance might have a high risk level, but you may only need moderate or conservative portfolios to meet those goals. That's when we're going to have the conversation of, do you want more risk to potentially leave more to your beneficiaries, or do you just want to spend more money in retirement? By the way, take higher risk when something lower or I should say, why take the higher risk when something that has lower risk can maybe reach your retirement goals? And there are those cases where we have clients, though, that just maybe want to be in the market more, and they're okay with taking risk. And the next section we're going to talk about is volatility control, and Aaron's going to talk to you a little bit about that.
So with volatility control, we're always looking for ways to lower the volatility in a client's portfolio. One of the things that we've started to incorporate more into our portfolios over the years are FIAs, or fixed indexed annuities. There was a study done by Ibbotson in 2017 that looked at the standard deviation, or the risk, and average returns of large company stocks, bonds, and those FIA accounts. And it's actually really interesting. What they found is that since 1927 to 2016, the average annualized return of large cap stocks has been 9.92. Long-term government bonds has been 5.32. But the fixed indexed annuities has been 5.81, so actually higher than long-term government bonds, with about the same standard deviation as long-term bonds. The other thing that we took a look at in the study took a look at is when looking at kind of a balanced portfolio, a 60-40 split is really what they were looking at. So stocks and bonds during that time period had an overall average return of 8.55. If you still had a 60-40 split but added 20% to bonds and 20% to an FIA, that return increased to 8.66. And if you completely remove the bond part altogether and just add in the FIA, so now you have stocks and an FIA in there, it actually increased it to 8.77. And the volatility dramatically decreased because you can't have a negative return with an FIA account. So we found that a combination of different market managers, alternative managers, and those protected accounts or FIA accounts are what works best for giving us the best upside potential and eliminating the negative side during market downturns. Another thing that we look at with investment planning and investment management are ways to evaluate your risk while still working toward those goals. We don't want to completely eliminate all risk because we need to have some. And there are really 3 types of markets. There are bull markets where the market's going up. that we've been in basically for the last 10 years. There are the bear markets where markets are going down, and then a sideways market. As Dwayne said, from April of this year till mid-October, even a late October, we've pretty much been in a sideways market. So the hard thing for investors and for advisors is never knowing which market we're going to be in, when is the end, and when is the beginning of a new market cycle. There are indicators, but we don't know for certain. This is why we use a combination of active and passive managers on the market and alternative side, and that allows us to do well during the bull markets and sideways markets, but also hedge against the bear markets as well. We typically find for most of our clients that a 70-30, 60-40, 50-50 split between market alternatives and those protected areas that are the FIA accounts ends up being best. It gives us the best upside potential with very limited downside risk. And one of the things that that we like to show clients when they come in is just an example of two different portfolios. And if you look at it from 2000 to 2016, this portfolio one has an average return of 6.04% with a standard deviation or a risk of 18.01%. So if you were to put in $1 million, and we're going to use the 4% rule, which you've probably heard of, you can draw 4% out of an account for each year, and it should last 30 plus years. So we're going to draw 4% out of that portfolio each year. So we're going to take the $40,000 a year. If you started with $1 million back in 2000 and took $40,000 a year through 2016, you'd have $694,000 and change left. That's not bad. You've taken over $680,000 and you have almost $700,000 left. But if we were to invest in portfolio 2 that has an average return of 6.03 and a standard deviation of only 5.21, start with the same million, draw the same $40,000 a year, and you're actually left with $1.5 million in change. The first portfolio is the S&P 500. Portfolio 2 is one of our portfolios. And we hear all the time that the higher risk portfolio is going to do better because it can have a higher average return. But what we found is just the opposite is true. The drops in the market completely destroy the overall return in dollars. When we build portfolios, we build them so that we don't have those 30, 40, and 50% drops in the market. That's what's going to hurt your overall dollar return. Even though the average returns are about the same of those two portfolios, the sequence of those returns is what affects the account the most. The markets and the economy are always changing. This is why we're always looking for ways to give you as much return as possible without sacrificing that downside. So the next area that we take a look at is fees. And everyone's concerned about fees these days, and they should be. So when we first do the analysis on the portfolio, we get to see what a client is actually paying in fees for their whole portfolio, not just one account, but for everything. So it's important to know what you're currently paying. Many people have no idea what they're paying overall. When we ask in our seminars how many people know how to read their statements or how to figure out what they're paying in fees, very few people actually raise their hands. We might have one or two out of 40 to 50 people that actually understand what they're paying and how to find it. They may know that they have a management fee, but they're not sure what the underlying expenses are of the funds or the managers that are used. So we give you a clear picture of what your fees are and what they would be with us for the accounts and then for overall. It's okay to be paying a fee. No advisor, no fund manager works for free, but you need to be getting value for the fees that you're paying. So we promise you'll know exactly what you're going to be paying in fees with us. We want everything to be very transparent. So the next thing is longevity protection. So how do we make sure that your money is going to last as long as you do? You don't want to be holding your last dollar when you turn 80 or 85 when you might live another 15 to 20 years. And as Dwayne mentioned in our income planning podcast, we want to make sure that at the very least your fixed expenses are covered by guaranteed income. Those could be such things as pension, Social Security, disability, or could be through the use of annuities. There are really three different buckets that we take a look at. One is safety, income, and then the last one is kind of your dream bucket or that growth bucket. So the safety bucket's going to be your cash, CDs, money markets, short-term bonds, basically money you need for emergencies or money that we don't want in the market because you're going to make a specific purchase, or it's going to be money that you're just going to be using over the next few years. The income bucket is for the money that's going to be used to create that guaranteed income if your pension and Social Security aren't enough. So we may include some of the travel money, your variable expenses, your hobby money, if you don't want that subject to market risk as well. And lastly, that dream bucket or the growth bucket, this is money to basically help offset inflation. It's money for your variable expenses for travel, golf, long-term care expenses down the road. This is money that is subject to market conditions and isn't going to be used for just your daily living. So after we have your fixed expenses guaranteed for life, then we can look at putting the rest of that money into the market for future growth. We want to make sure that your income and investment plan are based on math and not the market.
So you can kind of see by talking over all these things, you can see why it's so important for people to have a retirement plan in place. And as we said in another podcast, when we talk to people and ask them, do you have a written plan in place? Again, one, maybe two people will raise their hands, but you can see the importance of having that so that when you retire, you have something that you can take to your financial advisor, you have it at home that you can open up and look and see, okay, here's where my accounts are, here's how much is in my accounts, here's when to start my RMDs, here's where those required minimum distributions are going to come from, I should start my Social Security here, and so on and so on. But it's very important that you understand and have that plan in place. And something, too, that you can take into the advisor, meet with them once, twice a year, where we can open that up with you. Hey, what's changed? What hasn't changed? Are you guys traveling more? Do you need more money? How's that going to affect the overall portfolio? And, again, that's just the idea of having a plan in place. And our main goal at the Dwayne Johnson Group and Bridger Financial Services is to make sure our clients know that they can make it to and through retirement so that they can spend with confidence during those years. We want to make sure they have financial security in any economy that they might face. We'd like to thank you for listening to the Retirement DNA podcast today. If you have any questions or you'd like to sit down with us for an initial consultation and to see if you are on track to meet your secure retirement, please give us a call at 951-244-6702. Again, that's 951-244-6702. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe to our biweekly podcast. And please tell your friends and family if you think they would benefit from hearing the information that we provide. Also, check us out at DwayneJohnsonGroup.com and also BridgerFinancialServices.com. Have a great day and also have a very Merry Christmas. Thank you for listening.
Investment advisory services offered through Bridger Financial Services, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of California. Insurance products and services are offered through Dwayne Johnson Group, LLC, affiliated company. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. Dwayne Johnson Group, LLC is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during the show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Dwayne Johnson Group, LLC.